her enemy suddenly attacks from inside the temple with webs which she successfully evades. The enemy spider continues to engage the girl, pushing her to a corner, so she summons the power of the flame spirit and uses it to incinerate the spider. Afterward, we learn her name is Ayano and she is joined by two of her friends, namely Yukari and Nanes. We then see a boy called Kanagi Kazuma being invited to a meeting. It turns out the owner of the house has also invited a psychic called Yuki who seems to be uncomfortable around Kazuma. The owner explains that as long as they successfully exorcise the spirit in his mansion, he doesn't care for their past relationship. When the spirit shows itself, Yuki quickly throws a fireball at it, but it sends the attack back tenfold and destroys the building as a result. Upon seeing the power of the creature, the owner begs Kazuma to defeat it whatever the cost may be. He then uses his wind powers to stop the burning, and afterward he defeats the spirit by cutting it to bits using wind slashes. At home, Ayano learns from her father that Kazuma, her cousin who was banished from the clan, has returned but with a different name, Yagami Kazuya. At night, someone sneaks into the mansion and kills some members of the family who he has a grudge with. The next day, they begin an investigation on the dead bodies but have no idea who the killer is. Ayano concludes that the killer must be Kazuma and seeks permission to kill him. However, her father doesn't want her to take action as there is no evidence against him. She secretly tags along with Shingo and Taikya, who are on their way to apprehend Kazuma. On their way, Ayano is separated from the group by a barrier. She summons her fire blade in order to brute force her way out, but it proves fruitless. Meanwhile, the boys encounter Kazuma at a construction site. When they move to attack him, he makes their spell explode before they launch it. At the same time, the boys are attacked by a wind spirit and are killed. When Ayano arrives at the scene, she immediately attacks Kazuma on seeing the corpses. He tries to explain he isn't the killer, but Ayano is blinded by rage. She finally gives a listening ear when she is overpowered by his wind ability. The next day, Kazuma receives a call from his father, whose name is Genma, requesting a meeting. Just then he gets flashbacks from when his father, the head of the main family, banished him for failing to defeat Ayano, who was way younger than him, in battle. At night they meet up at the arranged location, but then Kazuma challenges Genma to a duel. Kazuma attacks using his wind blades, but Genma deflects each attack with no effort at all. Genma begins his attack on Kazuma, who manages to come out unharmed, although with maximum effort. When Genma charges another attack, Kazuma goes for his explosion trick, which, unfortunately, does not work on his father. Even with the clear difference in power, Kazuma remains cocky and proud, so Genma begins to show him his true might. He prepares a blue flame technique, the Shinen, known as the most powerful technique of the Kanagi clan. Kazuma also gets serious and summons numerous wind spirits who gather at an incredibly faster rate. He uses the power on Genma, who is still charging his attack, and knocks him out along with his blue flame. After the battle, Kazuma is approached by a young boy, who we discover is disappointed that Kazuma cannot recognize him as he is his younger brother Ren. Inside his hotel, Kazuma explains that he is a contractor who made a contract with the Wind Spirit Lord, just as the leader of the Kanagi clan made with the Fire Lord. Ren tries to persuade Kazuma to make up with the clan, but he reveals he has resolved never to do that, as they once cast him away. At night, the hotel is suddenly attacked, so Kazuma takes Ren to escape through the window. At the same time, Ayano, who has been tracking him, stumbles on the collapsing building, with Kazuma fleeing from the window. Although they landed successfully, the enemy shows himself and begins to battle Kazuma. As they fight, Ren calls for help, so Kazuma is distracted and almost pays for it with his life. The next day, Kazuma decides to pay a visit to the Kanagi family. At the entrance, he meets with some disciples who accuse him of killing their comrades. Although they carry out a joint attack on him, he easily subdues their flames and knocks them down. He meets with Jugo, the head of the clan, and explains how Ren was abducted. When they settle down along with Ayano present, Jugo reveals that the enemy is the Fuga clan, who are wind spellcasters. He explains that the Fuga clan who have been serving them have started a revolt against them. In addition, he surmises that Ren was abducted to be used as a sacrifice to revive their god called Ayama. Elsewhere, we see the Fuga clan prepare Ren to break the special fire seal, which only he, as the descendants of the Kanagi head family, can touch. After hearing his story, Ayano demands the location of the Fuga clan so she can rescue Ren. However, Jugo tells her she can't handle them alone. Kazuma volunteers to help and even makes a half-baked plan. Before they leave, he tells Jugo to pay him, as he isn't doing any favors for the family who banished him. En route to the location, Ayano bickers at Kazuma due to his reckless driving, but he remains calm and tolerates her short temper. As they converse, Kazuma senses an attack, so he quickly jumps from the vehicle along with Ayano before it is destroyed. When Ruya reveals himself as the enemy, Kazuma directs Ayano to always fight him at close range. The battle commences between Ruya's miasmic wind and Ayano's flames. When she asks for backup as originally planned, Kazuma reveals he is going ahead to save his brother. Although Ren is made to break the seal and release the Yauma before Kazuma arrives, he saves him before the Yauma consumes his soul. When asked why he took the side of the Kanagi clan, Kazuma responds by saying he was paid 100 million yen by the leader. His interference angers them, so they attack him en masse. Just then, Ruya arrives to join in the battle. He absorbs the power of the sealed Yama and transforms into a stronger being. However, he begins recklessly attacking his followers and then goes in the direction of the Kanagi clan's mansion. Ren and Kazuma find Ayano severely wounded and poisoned from her battle with Ruya. Kazuma explains she is on the brink of death, but there's a way to save her, although he considers it a waste of his precious elixir. As she is unconscious, Kazuma feeds the medicine directly into Ayano's mouth and heals her instantly. When she awakens, Kazuma teases her for being extremely weak, so she gets angry and tries to attack him. Together they track the possessed Ruya into the forest and engage him in battle. After opening a path for Ayano in the midst of Ruya's raging wind, Kazuma uses his abilities to summon a powerful wind spell from above to create an opening for Ayano to strike. However, her strike is stopped by the powerful foe. Next, Kazuma orders Ayano to buy him some time to charge another spell. She tries to fight but soon gets overpowered. She gets back up, this time with more determination, and begins pushing Ruya to his limits. Kazuma arrives with his eyes glowing blue and tells Ayano it is the mark of his contract with the Spirit Lord. With his power, he completely purifies the Ruya's malevolent wind, giving Ayano the perfect opening to finish him off. Some days later, Ayano and Ren tail Kazuma, who is being accompanied by a beautiful girl. When she finds the route they are taking to be that of a motel, she gets jealous but still forces Ren to continue the stalking. The girl called Misao leads Kazuma to an isolated rundown hotel where she has some mercenaries assault him with guns. They ruthlessly finish him off, going all the way to use frag grenades to ensure his death. Ayano reveals herself and tells Misao that such attacks cannot harm Kazuma. Just then, Kazuma finishes off all her paid mercenaries, including the sniper on the roof, in a blink of an eye. Ayano chases Misao to the roof to apprehend her for treason, but she chooses to fight back. Ayano tries to take action using her flame blade, but then Kazuma arrives from above and tells her to let Misao go. Kazuma goes to her and allows her to vent her anger since he is somewhat responsible for her brother's death. She continues attacking until she collapses, having spent all her energy on vain attacks. When she is left alone on the roof, a mysterious man approaches her, promising to grant her desires. He grants Misao a strange ability that she uses to capture and drain the life force of numbers of innocent civilians. Later, Ayano pays Kazuma a visit in his hotel suite. She presents him with a request to investigate a case of over 100 counts of deaths, of which the victims are young ladies. Kazuma accepts the job but states that he wouldn't need her help because she is most likely to become a hindrance. Upon hearing this, she storms out of the room in anger. While going home with her friends, they get lost in an isolated area, where Misao surrounds them with her life force draining fluid, so Ayano begins to fend them off with her flames. However, their situation soon becomes direr with nowhere to escape. Kazuma, who has been watching, goes to assist in the battle, and together they manage to dispel the technique. Kazuma explains that he used her as bait and has succeeded in tracking the whereabouts of the enemy. He flies off to her location, leaving an annoyed Ayano behind. He finds out Misao to be the culprit but doesn't look surprised at her desperation for vengeance. When Ayano arrives at the scene, she immediately moves to punish Misao, but Kazuma tries to stop her. She lets her anger overcome her, and as a result, Misao successfully escapes from them. Misao rendezvous with the being, who reveals herself to be a seraph. They begin the ritual to rip the souls Misao had obtained from everyone she killed. The seraph watches as souls of the dead envelop and merge with Misao's being. At night, an inspector called Takabana Kirika helps Misao's family locate her whereabouts. While the others prepare to carry out the operation, Ayano reveals her job is to stop Kazuma from interfering with Misao's execution. At the church, Misao comes out to confront her father and relatives. She, however, states her disappointment that Kazuma or Ayano are not part of the party meant to kill her. Meanwhile, Ayano prepares to stall Kazuma, who is on his way to interfere. She assaults him midair with several barrages of flame attacks before summoning her blade. Although he overpowers her, he helps her before she falls to her death. Kazuma continues her stalling by involving Ren, but Kazuma explains that she has her priorities misplaced. Just then, there's a huge explosion from the church. When they arrive, Misao has already slaughtered her family members. To carry out her revenge, Misao begins her attack on Kazuma. However, the powers she worked so hard to acquire do not affect him. The seraph Misao refers to as Tenchi reveals himself, so she begs for his guidance. Tenchi then reveals he only deceived her and that she can never defeat Kazuma. Having discovered she was used as a pawn by Tenchi, she is filled with guilt and collapses. When Ayano tries to go to her aid, they are repelled by a strong energy. Tenchi begins absorbing the life force Misao failed to utilize and makes it his own as originally planned. He then introduces himself as Michael Hurley and vows to defeat Kazuma in the name of the Stars of Sagacity. He transforms Misao into a dragon called Viltra and merges with it to battle Kazuma. Ayano confronts the dragon with her fire, but it regenerates rapidly. She continues her attacks, but it keeps regenerating. She continues fighting recklessly so she is attacked. However, Kazuma saves her in time. As a result of saving her, Kazuma sustains a grave injury on his abdomen. While Ren and Ayano try to deal with the dragon, Kazuma prepares his most powerful wind attack. He returns prepared and helps Ayano advance her flames to the blue Shinen. He launches her above the dragon where she defeats it with a single strike of her flaming sword. Some days later, Ayano receives a mission from her father to take care of a ghost scaring people in her school. He also obtains a bodyguard for her although she is against it. Kazuma shows up to report to duty as her new bodyguard so she freaks out even more. When they get to the school, Kazuma states that he won't interfere unless her life is in danger. When she notices a bush rustle, she moves to fire blindly at it so Kazuma makes her miss. It turns out she was being tailed by Nanis and Yukari. While investigating inside the building, Kazuma senses the presence of something so he sends a spell towards it. However, his wind spell is returned to them and ends up blowing up the lady's skirts. She freaks out on Kazuma who is staring so the ghost successfully escapes them. The ghost attacks Ayano from behind after which she warns the group to leave the premises. Ayano then attacks it so it flees further inside. She tries to chase it but Kazuma stops her. He explains that the ghost is hiding something and he wants it to lead them all the way before killing it. Later, the group tracks the ghost to the backyard only for it to prank Ayano with a bucket. She reaches her limits and begins letting loose at the ghost. After a while, Kazuma decides to intervene so he captures it with a wind barrier. They soon find out the ghost is a pixie who introduces herself as Tiana. She explains she was trying to prevent the interference of humans from messing with their work on the cherry tree. She explains she and her fellow fairies are trying to grant the wish of an old man who wanted the cherry tree to bloom once more. After they make the tree bloom, they leave, having accomplished their task. While having dinner with Ayano at a restaurant, Kazuma is called upon by a pixie so he goes to meet it. Outside, Tiana reveals herself and requests a favor from Kazuma. She begs him to save their fairy clan by helping them retrieve a hidden treasure that was stolen from them. When he asks for payment, she presumes he is supposed to help them as they are part of the Wind tribe. However, Kazuma reveals that he has no obligation to help them. To persuade him, she promises him gold nuggets and gems as payment. He accepts with the condition that he is given half of what they owned. Meanwhile, in the pack, Ren is seen playing with a girl called Ayumi. Just then, some men in suits arrive and push Ren aside before capturing her. When he notices they plan to tase her, he defends her by confronting the men without a weapon. They soon result in using their guns so Ren melts the gun and introduces himself as a spellcaster from the Kanagi clan. The leader of the group reveals they work for the Tsuwabuki family and advises Ren to step aside so he doesn't spark a feud between their families. Ren becomes hesitant to protect Ayumi but he ends up doing so and making the men retreat out of fear. Elsewhere, Tiana reveals that the treasure he is trying to retrieve for the pixies was stolen by the Tsuwabuki family. This information interests Kazuma so much as he has been waiting for an opportunity to destroy the family who is known to control earth magic. At the Tsuwabuki family mansion, we see the leader's daughter called Mayumi scold her assistant for being unable to deal with Ren. While investigating the mansion, Kazuma is drawn in by a technique from a woman called Kiraha. He lands inside the building and is attacked by the members who are shocked that he is a wind spellcaster. When Tiana falls, he tricks them into believing she is the treasure Ren took and escapes while they are confused. On the train, Ayumi reveals to Ren she plans on returning to the Tsuwabuki family after she sees the ocean with him. Tiana asks why there is tension in the Tsuwabuki family, so Kazuma explains that they are supposed to carry out a ritual called the Teisai. When Mount Fuji erupted and caused an uncontrollable disaster 300 years ago, the leader of the Tsuwabuki obtained the power of the Earth Lord and sealed the volcano at the expense of her life. Ever since the family performs the Teisai to reseal the volcano behemoth every 30 years by forcing the family heir to give up her life. Ayumi explains that she is the sacrifice for the Teisai so she wants to see the ocean before she goes back to perform her duty. They begin making memories on the beach but the fun time quickly comes to an end as Mayumi arrives to pick her up. When Ayumi goes to meet her, she is treated roughly by her sister and her aide called Yuji. Yuji goes too far with his scolding so Ren interferes once again, and so Yuji moves to challenge Ren on the beach. When the fight begins, Ren has no choice but to play defense as Yuji has the environmental advantage. Ren quickly wraps himself in flames so when Yuji tries to control the soil from beneath him, he is unable to as they have melted. Afterward, he defeats Yuji with a single attack but then Mayumi makes him fight despite his condition. Just then, Mayumi reveals to Ren that Ayumi is not human but a clone made from herself to serve as a sacrifice for the Teisai. This makes Ren lose his will to fight so even when Ayano arrives, Mayumi and Yuji leave the scene with no more interference. When they alight from the vehicle at home, Tiana and Kazuma find that the treasure was implanted into Ayumi. Instead of retrieving the egg at that moment, Kazuma reveals he'll wait until the next day to ruin their plans before the ritual. Later, Kira leads Yuji to a room where he finds Mayumi and Ayumi sealed in a crystal in preparation for Teisai. She informs him that although Mayumi is not supposed to die anymore, she might if the ritual is interrupted. Elsewhere in the Tsuwabuki mansion, Kira is seen talking to her father, who she turned to stone for trying to stop her evil aspirations. Before the ceremony, Ayano and Ren barge into the mansion to meet with Ayumi. They are not allowed passage, so they resort to violence. However, their advance is impeded by a giant stone golem. When Ayano attacks it, her flames have no effect on it. It captures Ren, and when Ayano attacks with her flame sword, her efforts prove futile and she is knocked away. Ren soon discovers the golem is Yuuji, so he asks what happened to him. Yuuji explains that he sought necessary powers to safeguard Mayumi's life by making sure the Taisai isn't interrupted. Ren tries to reason with him, but his words only make Yuuji so anxious he decides to smash Ren. However, Yuuji's golem is sliced into bits and Ren is saved in time by Kazuma. However, the golem begins regenerating and joins its body parts together. Again, Ren tries to reason with Yuuji, but he resorts to violence. This makes Ren send a spell his way, and at the same time, Kazuma protects him from Yuuji's attack. Ren's spell begins burning the golem non-stop until it is purified, leaving Yuuji alive in the rubble. Afterward, they are attacked by Kira, who is an expert in gravity manipulation. He adds that she isn't supposed to possess such skill as an earth spellcaster, so it must be a result of the sealed behemoth of the mountain. Before the battle, Kazuma uses his wind to transport Ren into the mansion to the location Ayumi is being held. When her guards try to confront him, he reveals that he just beat Yuuji, so they run away scared. Outside, Ayano battles Kira, who seems to be having an easy time taking care of her flames. While in the cave, Kazuma also rescues Mayumi from the crystal, and as a result the place begins to collapse. Kazuma then makes a path upwards to make their escape. He joins the fight with Ayano, who is annoyed he left her as bait again. Kazuma reveals that Kira doesn't plan to seal the behemoth, but instead wants to obtain its powers for herself. She then justifies her actions by stating she has no choice as she was born without the ability to control Earth. Soon Kazuma makes her realize she has been used as a pawn for the behemoth's revival without her knowledge. As they type, the behemoth's powers get released to reveal a lava monster known as Zenon. At the same time, Kira's power is retrieved from inside her back to Zenon, who originally owned it. Together, the siblings begin taking care of the monster, but their attacks have no effect on it. However, when it attacks, the range of the damage caused sends chills down everyone's spine. While in a stalemate, Karua suddenly appears on the battlefield with the ability to control Earth. She confronts Zenon and pays dearly with her life in an instant. As they continue the fruitless battle, Ayumi begins the Taisai, so Zenon's raging is subdued for a while. This allows the group an opportunity to have a fighting chance. Kazuma summons his contractor powers, which he uses to lift Zenon away from his energy barrier, while Ayano and Ren combine their flames to make a hole in its hard skin. Kazuma finishes it off with a wind attack that causes it to explode from within. After the battle, Ren goes to care for Ayano, who used too much power during the fight. She tells Ren not to be sad as she was able to have a fulfilled life thanks to him. Shortly after, she begins turning into dust, leaving behind the pixie egg which was stolen by the Tsuwabuki. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.